Melville Dewey kind of sitting by himself and trying to think, what are all the possible things that books could be about? And he made a list of everything he thought books could be about, right? And divided it that way. Library of Congress was kind of the opposite. So Thomas Jefferson had a bunch of books, and he donated them to the Library of Congress. That was how the Library of Congress started. And so the librarians there needed to organize them. So they looked at the books, figured out what they were about, and divided them like that. So they're both dividing things by subject, but one of them is starting with this general philosophical framework, and the other one starts with actual books in hand. So philosophically, it's a little bit different, and practically, it's a little bit different, because it starts with numbers, right? So in this case, Charlotte Bronte, the first two letters are PR, and those letters are very meaningful, but I don't expect you to know what they all mean so far. But PR is British literature. Anything that starts with PR is going to be about British literature. And I know that, so whenever I see that, I say, aha, I know what this book is about, right? What other letters do you have at the beginning of your call numbers? What have you got about? Yes? PS. Great. Do you have any guesses what PS might be? What book are you researching?
It's just like a biography.
It's a general biography. Well, PS is American literature, right? So PR is British, PS is American. So most of you are going to find books that are in those two areas. Does anybody have a PN? You do. Okay. So PN is literature generally, right? So that includes stuff about genres like film, theater, comics, right? It includes kind of these general theories of what literature is. You'll find lots of interesting stuff often in the PNs. Did anyone find a letter that, or did anyone find one that doesn't start with the letter P? And that's not too surprising because P is language literature, right? So if you did, let me know. Sometimes things that aren't specifically literature will be relevant. But in this case, it seems like you all kind of fell in the P's. PN, PR, yes. Okay, yes?
I have PA.
PA, okay. PA is classical literature like Greek and Roman.
Yeah, on that.
So you're looking at, what work are you looking at?
I was looking at the Odyssey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Homer's going to be in the PAs with her. Yeah. And in case you want to kind of test my knowledge on it, right, the PQs are the Romance languages, the PTs are the Germanic languages, PB is like the Celtic languages, there are a bunch of others. PE is like the English language, so that's where you find dictionaries and that sort of thing. Yeah. Any others? Okay. So PR tells us this is British literature. That's helpful. But of course, British literature is really big. So then we have the rest of the numbers to help us figure out the rest of it. So usually, smaller numbers, like 3 digits and below, are going to be general, right? So in this case, Family Likeness, Sex, Marriage, and Incest from Jane Austen to Virginia Woolf. This is a book that's making an argument about British literature, right? It's not about Austen, right? Although you probably have a chapter on Austen. It's more general. So it's in 868, right? It's looking at larger moments in literature. There may be another one. Let's see. For instance, this one. This one is PR 4169. The later ones are mainly organized by the author that they're about, right? So in this case, if you go to 4169, all of those books are going to be about Bronte. And because of the way it's organized, the Bronte sisters are actually all together. So there might be a few books that are about Brontes and not just Charlotte. And it's actually organized want to give you an idea that this is somewhat arbitrary, but it's orderly, right? So they're organized generally by century. So if you're looking at a 19th century work, that's going to have a bigger number than if you're looking at like a 16th century work. And then within the century, it's alphabetical. So Bronte is going to be a lot earlier than Wilde, right? So that's kind of the idea. That's the general organizational principle. There's a lot more details which we'll doubtless discover. But the important thing about this is, if I go to PR 4169, right, and I find this book, all the books that are near it are also about Bronte, right? So that's a really useful thing. And we actually talk in the library world about serendipity, right? And serendipity is when you don't know exactly what you're looking for, but you still find it, right? So that's what happens when you go up there and you know that you're looking for this book, and that book is okay, but then next to it is the book that you always wanted and never knew, right? So it's always worthwhile to look at the shelf and find not just the one book that you're looking for, but look at the books near it, because usually they're good, especially since there's only so much I can know about this book from the catalog record, right? So if I'm looking at this book, I know a little bit about it. I know that it looks at Charlotte, Emily, and Anne. I know that it goes into literature and medicine, the human body, women in literature. So I know a little bit about it, but there's a lot I don't know, right? But when it's on the shelf in front of me, I can pull it down. I can look at the table of contents. I can look at the index. I can skim through the whole book and say, this is great, or this isn't what I wanted. I'm going to put it back. So it's often more efficient, actually, than trying to go through the catalog and look at each one individually. Okay. So the next thing I wanted to do is I wanted to give you the opportunity to actually try this. So those of you who don't have a book, take a couple more minutes and identify one. If you can't find one, find a partner who has a book to look for. And again, you're going to need a print book for this exercise. If the book you found is electronic, then find someone who's doing it. Is that your question? Okay, ask your question. Okay. And those are the arrangements I don't know as well. So HM is going to be on the 4th floor instead of the 5th floor. That's the first thing. And that's going to be in the social sciences. So it's not going to be strictly literature focused, but it may still be helpful to you in the writing you're doing. Yes? That's fine, actually. So the way it works is before it starts going into the second letter, it does the first one. So P looks like this: P, PA, P. So Q is just general. Q is the sciences. So it's the science. Yes.
If I'm correct, I see here it says level 3 HF. So what was HF?
HF is probably sociology. I don't know sociology as well as English, but it's going to be in there somewhere. And level 3 is our reference collection. So that's going to be a book. It's probably not going to be a book that's intended to be read all the way through. It's going to have different entries, like an encyclopedia. And if you could check books out, you can't check that one out. But you can use it in the library. I love these questions. Are there any more? Okay, so take a second, make sure you have a call number, and write it down, or take a picture of it with your phone, or whatever you do when you want to remember something.